A few months ago at this point, James Gunn released his plans for the first chapter in his new DC universe. And I don't know about you guys, but there's some pretty good stuff here. Superman Legacy is automatically my most anticipated movie of the decade. Booster Gold and Lantern sound like they could be a lot of fun. And I think that everyone needs a little more Swamp Thing in their life, so it's great to see that that's coming. But even with as spoiled as we were with that announcement, I think I speak for at least a few others when I say that there was a very important character missing from this lineup. Jon Jones, the Martian Manhunter. You see, besides really only like Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman, I do think that my favorite superhero of all time is the Martian Manhunter. I mean, he's the heart and soul of the Justice League and one of its founding members. Someone who can go toe-to-toe with some of the strongest characters in the DC universe. Someone with so much untapped potential, it's actually insane how little is done with him in the mainstream media. Or even in the comics he started in. Unlike most, I actually am a pretty big fan of the New 52 overall. It came out at a perfect time, just right around when I really started getting into comics. But even then, with my limited knowledge on superhero stuff pre-New 52, I still understood how disrespectful it was kicking Manhunter from the Justice League. And not only that, but then going and replacing him with Cyborg? Just a quick tangent here. I have never liked Cyborg. I think he's okay as a Teen Titan or when he's as side as a side character can be, but just in general, that whole, I hate you, Dad. You made me a monster.
Why are you crying?
Like, shut the fuck up, bro. What are you even doing here? And then you have the nerve to replace one of the most badass superheroes to ever exist on his own team? Woo! Alright, I'm getting angry. Let's get back to the subject at hand. So I know Martian Manhunter isn't like missing or anything. I mean, he's still a pretty big deal in the cartoons, with his most prominent role easily being in Justice League Unlimited, where he was a big fan favorite. And even more recently in animated movies like Superman, Man of Tomorrow, he's starting to get a little more play than what we've seen in the past. And don't forget, it was only 2 years ago when Jones made his big screen debut with Zack Snyder's Justice League. And when it comes to this portrayal of the character, I'm a little mixed on it. I think Henry Lennox is honestly a pretty great choice for Jones, and he definitely brings that intimidating but friendly voice that is so associated with Martian Manhunter perfectly.
One of them was my dear friend who's recently passed away, Bernie Mac.
My main issue with the guy is just that he hasn't done anything. Like, he's been a part of this universe since the beginning, apparently, and has been pretty heavily involved with the other heroes, but he's only just now making his appearance public to Batman to offer his help? I mean, come on, it's stupid. And it goes against a lot of what Jones believes in, which is primarily his wholehearted love and fascination with humanity, as well as his desire to protect them in order to ensure that what happened to his race can't happen to us. Also, there's this design. I mean, I don't really hate it, and I think that the more over-designed, ultra-realistic look that they give to him fits really well for the world that Zack Snyder was setting up, but it doesn't make him stand out nearly as much as I wish he would have, because at the end of the day, he really just looks like any other enemy that these DC characters have had to fight in this universe. But also, we just didn't see enough of him to really get a feel for how great his character could have been, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. However, it seems like new days are finally upon us, and with James Gunn's new universe that he's setting out to reboot, it seems like a vast majority of the characters in it are going to be recast and revamped to fit Gunn's vision. And if I had to put money on it, I'd say that Jon Jones will be coming back to our screens in a new live-action reincarnation sooner rather than later. James Gunn has been teasing the character practically since he was announced as DC's new head. For example, in this post that he put up on his Instagram that got more than just a couple of heads turning. Will 5 of 10 do? So let's break this down real quick and see just how likely it is the Manhunter's going to be a part of this 5. So right off the bat, Nightwing, Lobo, and Jason Todd are all pretty much guaranteed to show up in this universe fairly early on, so that's 3 out of the way. Then with characters like Mr. Freeze and the Court of Owls, they definitely could show up here, but I could see them more likely being a part of the Pattinson Batman universe, just because they've been hinted to a lot more over there. Deathstroke, I mean, I guess he could be a part of the DCU, but I mean, they just kind of tried and gave up with him in the last universe, and at this point in time, I haven't been seeing a whole lot of buzz about him at all, so I mean, yeah, I think he could show up, but it probably won't be for a little while. With the 2 magicians, they could both easily be a part of the Swamp Thing movie, but with the recent confirmation on a second Keanu Constantine film coming, I have some doubts that Gunn is going to be rushing to provide his own interpretation of the character. And while Zatanna is great and all, and I'd love to see her character doesn't really have a whole lot to do with Swamp Thing, so if Constantine's not involved, I doubt that she'll be either. So with 2 spots left out of Gunn's 5 picks, I think we'll be seeing Brainiac, probably as a villain being built up in Superman or Supergirl's first few films, to eventually be a much bigger antagonist later down the line. And finally, of course, our boy, the Martian Manhunter. Say what you want about the guy, but I think that James Gunn really has a grasp on what makes the DC universe so important to so many people, and he seems to enjoy trying to balance the godlike status of these characters with their more human characteristics, which can be extremely well exemplified with Jones. I mean, he's a Superman level hero, so the spectacle and action is there, but then you factor in his heartbreaking backstory and the fact that his biggest weakness is fire, and he ends up with a lot more humanity that we usually don't see in characters that are this powerful. So, how can he be introduced? They could have him play a small part in the Superman or Supergirl movies as a friend to either Kryptonian, or even go back to his roots and make him a villain in his first appearance. Although I'd say that probably the most likely scenario is that he'll be in the Lantern show, given the fact that both properties are so tied in with space and aliens, and it's going to be a detective-based plot. But while I think any of these options could be cool in their own right, I still would want to see him in his own project. Now, a series can work extremely well here and I would not complain, but, and this is probably just a personal bias since I hate TV shows, I really want to see him in his own solo movie. Now, I know he's not the biggest and most popular character or anything, but I think if the first few projects in the new DCU are exceptional enough and give people high hopes, then they're gonna be willing to watch whatever is connected to it. I mean, if Gunn is taking a chance on the Authority, a team that even most die-hard comic fans don't know, I think that Martian Manhunter is a safe bet to at least be a moderate win for the company, if done correctly. So with that being said, how would I do it? Someone with no film experience whatsoever and a slowly failing YouTube channel. Well, for starters, we'd have to get that casting right. And right off the bat, I have no idea who to cast here. I mean, I'll take Idris Elba any day of the week, but he's probably gonna stay with Bloodsport, or if anything, he'll be the next Jon Stewart. I wouldn't hate Djimon Hounsou or Sterling K. Brown, but I also think that there are roles better suited for both of them. Winston Duke is great, but I think his alliances lie with Marvel, and Daniel Kaluuya would be perfect if he just bulked up a little bit more. I don't know, I'd be happy with everyone that I said here, but I mean also just as long as they're a good actor and have a cool voice, sure, they'd work. As for the look, as I mentioned, I'm not a huge fan of the overcomplicated, messy design, but I also don't really like the 50s era weird, ultra smooth green guy with blue undies. I think that there is definitely a happy medium, and by happy medium, I mean literally just exactly this. It's cool, recognizable, and I think can be translated very well into live action. But what about the plot? And this is where I think I'm gonna lose some of you. So there are two stories that I think could blend together very well in order to deliver a strong Manhunter movie. First, his entire character arc in Justice League New Frontier, specifically the animated movie version. And second, 2018's Bumblebee. Now just give me a second here. I think that New Frontier portrays Jones with more respect than I might have ever seen in a medium outside of comics. And once I explain some of the story details that I have in mind, Bumblebee will start to make a little more sense. I think the film should open up with the white and green Martian war on Mars, and it should just be this insane action-packed moment in the film's opening, showing John Jones as a military general or even the leader of his race, and eventually leading his people into slaughter. Then from this point, with all the remaining green Martians either dead or enslaved, Jones hears about a plan that the tall whites are having to travel down to Earth and enslave humanity. And Jones, already having failed his own people, can't let this happen to another planet. So he travels down to Earth and tries to stop the invasion before it happens. The twist is, however, he lands on Earth in 1950s America, a neo-noir era dominated by the space age. From here, I don't really care where the story takes place, but somewhere like New York does make the most sense.
OMG, can't forget the bad. Never, never, never.
Reason being that when Jones comes down from Mars, he finds the white Martians have infiltrated a very prominent part of American life at the time. That's right, baby. It's gonna be Martian Manhunter versus the mob. Besides the fact that this is just a really cool premise that I don't think has ever been utilized in the comics before, even though it just makes so much sense, I think that you can do a lot with this concept. Have Manhunter realize humans are destroying themselves already, proving to be a doomed race even without the white Martians' help. Show him the true nature of humanity and how he comprehends that in his own unique way. This can also give Manhunter's detective alter ego a much more believable reason to exist, as his Dick Tracy-inspired interpretation of a detective is practically synonymous with the time period. I mean, the possibilities are just endless here. This era really is a goldmine of untapped potential for the superhero film genre. You can also throw in other characters that are more associated with this time period that otherwise wouldn't get any play in this universe. Like having Wildcat teach Jones how to fight without relying on his powers, or having Alan Scott Green Lantern help him come to terms with his alien identity and learn what it means to be human. Or why not have him meet the Justice Society and they can teach him the importance of being a superhero. Then after this film, have Manhunter return to Mars to take his planet back now that he's realized that what his people needed after all wasn't wasn't a military leader or a king, but a symbol that could inspire his fellow Martians to rise up against their oppressors. And then you could have a couple of sequels that take place on Mars, with Jones waging war against the Tall Whites. Now I know that might be a little ambitious, but story-wise it does work really well, as it explains why he didn't stay on Earth from his first visit, and can still have him be a newly introduced superhero when he's inevitably reintroduced in the modern age with the Justice League. I don't know, you might be thinking I'm crazy. A period piece detective sci-fi throwback film about a superhero that most people either don't know or don't care about. Yeah, it's a little crazy. But that's what makes it so fun to think about. James Gunn, at this point I can really only hope that you see this video and just consider the thoughts of bringing in the Martian Manhunter as a real heavy hitter in your universe. And when that day hopefully comes, I will be one happy mother.